There is a particular quality to the state that makes it hard to describe, even to yourself. It doesn't feel like the familiar spiral of anxious thinking, where the mind runs in circles and exhausts itself. And it doesn't feel like ordinary mental noise either. There is something quieter about it, more alert, almost watchful. Thoughts may still be present, but they no longer feel like the source of the disturbance. They feel secondary, as if they are trying to keep up with something that is already happening beneath them. Overthinking usually feels tight, claustrophobic. It pulls attention inward and traps it there. What you may be experiencing now has a different texture. Awareness seems wider, not narrower. You notice more. Subtle shifts in tone, in atmosphere, in how certain moments land inside your body. It's not that the mind is racing. It's that perception has changed, and the mind hasn't adjusted its language yet. This is why it feels difficult to label. The mind is designed to recognize patterns it has seen before. When something genuinely new emerges, it struggles. It reaches for familiar explanations, diagnoses, stories. Anxiety, stress, burnout. But none of them fit cleanly. They explain parts of the experience, not the whole of it. Reality shifts are often felt long before they are understood. There is a bodily knowing that arrives first, a subtle recalibration of attention, a sense that the background of your experience has changed, even though the foreground looks the same. The nervous system is usually the first to register this. You might feel restless without knowing why, hyper-aware of your surroundings, sensitive to small changes in sound, light, or emotional tone. Calm and unease can exist side by side in a way that feels contradictory, but very real. This doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your internal baseline is shifting. The body is always tracking reality more closely than the mind. Logic waits for evidence. The nervous system responds to direction. When something fundamental begins to reorganize, the body notices before circumstances move. Old safety patterns loosen. Automatic responses don't fire the way they used to. There is a brief window where nothing feels fully secure, but nothing is clearly dangerous either. This is often when people become concerned. The coexistence of calm and anxiety feels confusing. Calm suggests safety. Anxiety suggests threat. But during transitions, anxiety is not always a signal of danger. Sometimes it is a signal of unfamiliarity. The system is adjusting to a wider range of perception, and until that adjustment stabilizes, arousal increases. What's important here is that the body is not confused. It is adapting. It is learning a new rhythm before the environment reflects it back. The nervous system is usually the first to register this. You might feel restless without knowing why, hyper-aware of your surroundings, sensitive to small changes in sound, light, or emotional tone. Calm and unease can exist side by side in a way that feels contradictory, but very real. This doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your internal baseline is shifting. The body is always tracking reality more closely than the mind. Logic waits for evidence. The nervous system responds to direction. When something fundamental begins to reorganize, the body notices before circumstances move. Old safety patterns loosen. Automatic responses don't fire the way they used to. There is a brief window where nothing feels fully secure, but nothing is clearly dangerous either. This is often when people become concerned. The coexistence of calm and anxiety feels confusing. Calm suggests safety. Anxiety suggests threat. But during transitions, anxiety is not always a signal of danger. Sometimes it is a signal of unfamiliarity. The system is adjusting to a wider range of perception, and until that adjustment stabilizes, arousal increases. What's important here is that the body is not confused. It is adapting. It is learning a new rhythm before the environment reflects it back. As this continues, you may notice that your usual ways of making sense of things stop working. Explanations that once brought relief now feel thin. Beliefs you relied on no longer anchor you the way they did. Narratives that organized your life begin to lose coherence. It can feel as though the mental map you've been using no longer matches the terrain you're moving through. You know how to navigate the old landscape. You recognize its landmarks. But suddenly, the ground feels different underfoot. Directions that once made sense now lead nowhere. When this happens, clarity often disappears temporarily, not because you are regressing, but because the old framework cannot interpret the new data. The mind resists this. It prefers an outdated map over no map at all. Even a wrong explanation can feel safer than admitting, "I don't know how to name this yet." This gap is uncomfortable. The mind wants to fill it immediately, to label, to define, to restore certainty. But rushing to do so often collapses the process prematurely. New frameworks take time to form. They emerge slowly, through experience, not force. During this phase, emotional sensitivity often increases. You may find yourself more affected by energy, by tone, by the emotional states of others. Environments that once felt neutral now feel heavy or intrusive. Overstimulation becomes harder to tolerate. This is not fragility, it is permeability. Defenses that once filtered your experience are thinning, not because you are weaker, but because perception has widened. You are taking in more information, more nuance, more subtlety. What once passed unnoticed now registers. Sensitivity is often mislabeled as weakness because it exposes you to more input, but it is also how awareness expands. The cost of this expansion is that you can no longer numb yourself in the same ways. Distraction works less effectively. Noise feels louder. Inauthenticity stands out more sharply. At this point, a familiar fear may arise. The thought that something is wrong, that this state is a problem to be fixed. The mind, especially the part that identifies with control, tends to label unfamiliar internal states as danger. Certainty has always been its anchor. When certainty dissolves, panic can follow. Not because the situation is unsafe, but because the old reference points are gone. The mind attempts to return you to the previous version of normal. It urges you to ground, to stabilize, to restore what was. There is often an urge to fix the experience, to make it stop, to return to how things were before. But what if nothing is broken? What if the fear is not about the shift itself, but about losing authority over how reality is defined? Control depends on predictability. When perception expands, predictability decreases for a time. The ego experiences this as threat, even when the deeper system is moving toward greater coherence. All reality shifts feel disorienting at first. Every genuine upgrade includes a period where the old orientation has dissolved and the new one has not yet solidified. You are standing in the gap between perception change and life reorganization. Nothing feels fully solid here, but that does not mean nothing is forming. The danger is not the disorientation itself. The danger is rushing to ground too quickly, forcing conclusions, grabbing the first explanation that restores comfort, even if it constricts what is trying to emerge. Disorientation is not a mistake. It is the cost of entering a broader reality, a reality with more depth, more sensitivity, more complexity than the one you were operating in before. Many people misinterpret this phase as anxiety or dysfunction or overthinking, and because of that, they retreat. They shrink perception back down to what is manageable. They trade expansion for familiarity. But if you're here, noticing that this feels different, that something is shifting in how you experience yourself in the world, this is not a diagnosis. It's recognition. You are not thinking too much. You are sensing more. And sensing more requires time. Time to let the nervous system settle. Time to let new mental frameworks form. Time to allow reality to reorganize itself around who you are becoming rather than who you were. Clarity will return, but not as a sharp answer, as a quieter coherence, one that doesn't need to explain itself immediately. For now, What matters is presence, staying with the experience as it unfolds, without forcing it into old categories. Letting perception widen without demanding that it justify itself. This is not the end of the process. It is a threshold, and you are already standing in it. There is often a subtle shift that follows this initial recognition. Not clarity, not relief, but a different relationship with the experience itself. The urgency softens slightly. You stop trying to name what is happening every moment. Not because you figured it out, but because you begin to sense that naming it too quickly would flatten it. You may notice longer pauses in your internal dialogue, spaces where there used to be commentary. The mind still checks in, still tries to orient itself, but it does so less aggressively, as if it has realized that pushing harder doesn't actually bring it closer to understanding. In these pauses, something else becomes noticeable. A kind of background awareness that doesn't demand attention, but doesn't disappear either. It's there when you wake up. It's there in quiet moments. Even in the middle of ordinary tasks, it hums softly beneath the surface. This can feel unsettling because it changes how effort works. You may realize that forcing yourself to feel normal takes more energy than it used to. That returning to old rhythms now feels like swimming upstream. Not impossible, but oddly exhausting. At the same time, there may be moments where you feel unexpectedly present. Not joyful in a dramatic sense, just here, grounded in your body in a way that feels unfamiliar but real. These moments don't last long at first. They come and go, but they leave an impression. The nervous system is still learning what to do with this expanded range. It hasn't decided yet which signals require response and which don't. So it stays alert, watchful. This is why you might feel hyper-aware without feeling panicked, as if something important is happening, even though you can't point to a single cause. Sleep may change during this period, either becoming lighter or more fragmented or unusually vivid. The boundary between conscious and unconscious experience thins. Dreams may feel more symbolic, more emotionally charged, even if you don't remember them clearly. This isn't the mind malfunctioning. It's reprocessing, integrating information that didn't fit before. You might also notice that certain conversations suddenly feel draining in a new way. Not because they are negative, but because they operate at a frequency you're no longer fully inhabiting. Small talk feels louder. Repetitive concerns feel heavier. You don't judge them, you just feel them more distinctly. And yet, other interactions may feel unexpectedly nourishing. Even brief exchanges that carry sincerity, depth, or quiet presence can feel grounding. This contrast becomes sharper as perception widens. It teaches you, without instruction, what resonates now and what doesn't. There can be a temptation here to interpret this as detachment from life, as withdrawal. But something else is happening. Your attention is reorganizing. It is no longer scattered across as many surfaces. It is choosing more carefully where to land. This can feel like loss at first, less interest, less excitement, less urgency. But beneath that reduction, something steadier is forming, a different kind of engagement, one that doesn't rely on constant stimulation to feel real. Fear may still arise intermittently, especially when the mind checks the future and finds no clear outline. It may ask when this will settle, when things will make sense again, when you'll feel like yourself. But the version of yourself you're expecting may already be outdated. This is often the quiet realization that brings both grief and relief. Grief for the simplicity of the old orientation. Relief that you no longer have to force yourself into it. Nothing needs to be decided here. Decisions come later, once coherence returns. Right now, the task is subtler. Allowing the system to finish adjusting. Letting the nervous system learn that this wider awareness is not a threat. Letting the mind realize it doesn't need to control every shift to survive it. You may still fluctuate between trust and doubt, between openness and the desire to retreat. This oscillation is part of the process. It does not mean you are unstable. It means multiple layers of you are adjusting at different speeds. Over time, without effort, you may notice that some choices begin to feel less available. Not forbidden, just incongruent. They no longer generate internal momentum. At the same time, other directions begin to feel quietly possible. Not exciting yet, just less resistant. This is how alignment often returns. Not as a revelation, but as a reduction of friction. The experience you are in is not asking to be solved. It is asking to be lived through, to be allowed enough time to reorganize perception, identity, and nervous system into something that can hold more without collapsing. You are not behind, and you are not early. You are exactly in the middle of a recalibration that does not announce its milestones. What matters now is not interpretation, but tolerance. The capacity to stay present with an experience that hasn't finished explaining itself yet. And slowly, almost without noticing when it happens, this wider perception will begin to feel like home.